see if D is live. Come on, D. D seems live. Is T witching? D seems live. Is YouTubing? Is YouTubing? Is Facebooking? Everything seems to be doing its thing. We do have to get the foxhole up. The foxhole check. I feel like kind of microphone's off a little. Check. Let's bring the music down a little. Check 1, 2. I don't know. I guess the audio's okay. Feels like it's a little muted. 7. It's got syllabants. Sibilants. All right, let's do the intro. Welcome to the 9dNation.
בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים ואת הארץ.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Thousands of years later, it was Wednesday at 11 p.m. Central. Get your passport ready and be prepared to declare to the customs agents any edible plants or miscellaneous worldviews. You're now crossing into the nation with no denomination. Welcome to the 9dNation, the nation with no denomination. Oh, someone over at Sloan just said something. Genius. All right. Let's go back to this. We're gonna have to kind of get right to it. So this is episode 39, I think. If I've been counting well, this is episode 39 of season 2 of the 9dNation on the channel G Ross. Tonight broadcast on Twitch, DLive, Facebook, YouTube, and the Foxhole. And the topic is reading the Bible. We have so far read Genesis 1:1 through Genesis 14:11. And our story so far, by the way, we're going to do this for about 35 minutes and then bring in our panel. Permanent co-host, panelist, Black Yoda. Nearly frequent, permanent, I'll bet you we'll see Pythagi. But let's see. I'll bet you we will. I hope we will, but you know. Oh, let me also gotta get my chat window going. Black Yoda's here. Boy. Good to see you, brother. All right. Let me get started. So our story so far is this. The rules. No human angel half-breeds. No murder. No blood drinking. 3 bloodlines. Japheth, Greek. Hamites, Philistines, Canaanites, Assyrians. Shemites. Abram took over Israel, and nephew Lot took over Jordan. They had made bank in Egypt with a Turkish army. Lot took Sodom in the east, and Abram got Israel from Ahiah and moved to Oakland in Mamre, Hebron, Israel. A pseudo-empire under Kedah came at 5 local city-state kings in the Levant who beclowned themselves, even they fell into tar pits, and Sodom and Gomorrah was plundered. So now we're going to read tonight. It's going to be a big bite. We may not even exhaust commentary on this big bite, but I struggled to find a cutting point, so let me just jam right through it real quick, super fast. Like I always say these days. Rev. The Papster. Yo, yo. All right. That's over in Twitch. So many chats to watch. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but man, it's a lot to do. All right. So we're going to read Genesis 14, 12 through 24. Genesis 14, 12 through 24. The sound is 5x5. Thank you, Rev. There's literally no way I can know other than if you give us that info. Thank you. All right. So we left it on a cliffhanger. So as you just heard in our story so far, the four kings came, the massive four king empire came down under Kedorlaomer. I can't pronounce it. Nobody can. That's the riddle of the universe. If you can pronounce it right, you get a prize. They came down and smacked around the lower Levant kings, the 5, all around Abram and Lot. But they didn't, Abram and Lot weren't playing. They weren't part of this. They were just kind of like hanging out, doing their gypsy thing. What do I mean by that? I don't know. They're nomadic, tent-dwelling, kind of sort of hang out, but don't really be taxed or fight the wars, let's say. So we left at a cliffhanger. So now let's pick up where we left off. They also took Lot, Abram's nephew, and his possessions, and departed, for he was living in Sodom. Then a fugitive came and told Abram the Hebrew. Now he was living by the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and these were allies with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he led out his trained men, born in his house 318, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and defeated them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. That's pretty far. He brought back all the goods, and also brought back his relative Lot with his possessions, and also the women and the people. Then after his return from the defeat of Kedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Shaveth, that is, the king's valley. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was priest of God Most High. He blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. He gave him 1/10 of all. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give the people to me and take the goods for yourself. Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have sworn to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, for fear you would say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing except what the young men have eaten, and the share of the men who went with me. Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share. So that's different than what I said last week. That's not showing that this was a holy war. That is showing, though, that Abram isn't in debt to Salem. All right, now I'm going to attempt to read this in sort of Hebrew-ish, maybe-ish. 14:12. Let's get that going. $14, $12. All right, Let me read 12 through 15 and then scroll it down. Vayakhu et lost ve'et rechusho ben achi Avram ve'lechu vehu Yoshev bizdom. Vayaval hapelet ve'aged leivram hayibri yahu shochen bilone mamre hayem more ahi eshkol vahi ainer vehem baala verit Avraim. Vayishma Avraim ki neshbe ahiu vayarek et chanichaiv Yelide veto shemona ashar ushilosh meot vayerdof adan vayachalek alehem leiluhu vavadav vayakim vayirdefem ed shove asher meesemo ledamesek. All right, let me scroll down. We'll read 16 through 18. Check on the chat. Good. 16 through 18. All right. Vayashev et kol hainechush vagam et lost achiv ure hushov heshiv vegam el haneshim ve'et hayim vayetze melech sedom likreto achare Shuvo mehakot ed kader laumer va'et hamelechim asher ito el emek sheve hu emek hamelech umalke tzedek melech shalem hotzelechem vayayin yahu choyen le'el elyon. Okay, scroll down. That was 18. Let's read 19 to 23. Vayaverechehu, Vayomar Beroch, Avraim, Leel Elyon Kone, Shemayim Vaaretz. Uveruch El Elyon Asher Migen Sereche, Vayadeche, Vayatin lo ma'asher mikol, Vayamer melech Sedom el Avraim, Tinli hanefesh, Vehairechush kechlech. Let's see, we're reading down to 23. Kechlech. Vayamer Avraim el Melech Sedom, I almost died there. Harimoti Yedi el Ahaya el Elyon Kone Shamaim Waaretz. Im Mihut Vead Serok Naal Vem Eka Mikal Asher Lak Velo Tamar Ani Hesharti et Avraim. One more verse. 24 here. Bilade rak asher achelu hanaarim vechelek hanashim asher halechu iti aner eshkol umamre him yikhu chelkam. And that's it. All right. So let's start with verse 12. Let me get us to that. Verse 12. Got 19 minutes, maybe 24 minutes to grind through this. Lot to cover. Let's get her done. They took Lot and his stuff. There's no new words here. In the prior weeks, the first 39 weeks, we've already seen all these words once before, at least. They took Lot and his stuff, Abram's nephew, and left since he was in Sodom. So our story so far is no human angel half-breeds, no murder, no blood drinking, 3 bloodlines, Japheth the Greek, Hamites, Philistines, Canaanites, Assyrians, Shemites. Abram took Israel, nephew Lot took Jordan. They made bank in Egypt with a Turkish army. Cheddah's boys came in, rolled the locals, and even kidnapped Lot. Now question, We talked about this last week. Did they get lucky? Or did they know Lot was a high dollar target? Or was it a mix? Was there a few people that were new and they took it? And the rest would have said, no way. The text is trying to say to me, the way this one sentence reads, it's just because he happened to be there, right? It says, because he was in Sodom. Like maybe they thought high roller when they saw him. And they were talking like an amazing sodomite that would indicate, but then like, because so far there's been this trend where if you know that it's Abram, you leave that crew alone. Like the Pharaoh did and all this other stuff. The Pharaoh, at least, once he knew that Sarah was his wife, Sarai, he was like, whoa, hey, oh, hey. He didn't even kill Abram. He's like, just go and here's a bunch of money. All right, let's go to the next. Something just crept into my nose. All right. So we do have 3 new words here. Palit, that's escaped. There's 24 usages in the Old Testament. And it's someone who escaped by running. So you turn and run, right? Ibri, this could be a descendant of Aber. It's also another name for an Israelite. It's a name that I don't normally jump into proper names, but this one had caught my eye. There's 34 usages of that name in the Old Testament. Baal, and this isn't the same Baal. This means owner. Well, maybe it does, because it means owner or lord. 84 usages in the Old Testament can mean husband, lord, man, or owner. Let's dig into that word a little bit. Where's Baal? Yeah, here we go. Owned. We got a cookie. Play that cookie. Yeah, it is pronounced Baal. So, yeah. Lord usually means husband, owner. I don't know if that's the same exact word. Doesn't seem to be used that way. Sounds similar, though. Owner and Lord. All right. Let's play the cookie animation. Cookie.
Looky, looky, here comes Looky.
All right, thank you for that cookie. All right. Notes. So if you put this verse together, an escapee came and told Abraham the Israelite, oh, we say that because he got, let's see. We say that because he got escapee. An escapee came and told I'm saying he's an Israelite. Let's see. What's my note? I can't even read my own notes. We say that because he got buy-in from the locals. I don't know what I meant. So did they want this guy to escape, by the way? Did they let him escape knowing he'd go tell Abraham so that maybe they could get another high dollar target? I'm not sure. So the Shemites got raided by Cheddah's boys who kidnapped the wrong target, Lot, Abraham's nephew. All right, let's go to the next verse. Kind of butchered that sentence a little bit. Oh, well, sorry. Vayishma Avraim ki. When he heard they, Neshbe. That comes from Shabbat. That's to take captive. 48 usages in the Old Testament. It means captured. Captured. Ahiu, his relative. Vayarek. That comes from Ruk. That's to arm, to cast out, to draw out, to make empty, to pour forth. There's 19 usages. So to send out armed, right? To pour out your armed minions. Let's take a look at the Study Light page for this. So if you see it, this is thin green grass blades that empty up into the air from the ground. Isn't that kind of a weird image? Then it goes on to say, et chanichev, that comes from chanik, trained, tried, or experienced. This is the only time that's used in the Old Testament. It comes from a word meaning the roof of the mouth. So why is well-trained come from putting a flavor like sour fruit or something on the roof of the mouth of your baby's mouth so they'll start eating? It's a weird language. Let's see. That's for Rook. Now I'm on Elchana, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Yeah, this word right here. Yeah, I don't remember where I got that, but I looked it up. So these are some really, really closely trained men. Yalideh comes from Yalad. It means born. There's 13 usages. This is a word we've seen before. Yalad. It's begat. Veto Shamone Ashar Ushilosh Meot. There's 318. Let's see. Usages of Vayerdov. That comes from Radaf. That's to pursue, chase, or persecute. No, there's 144 usages of that. That's to pursue. All the way to Dan. Ad Dan. So to put this verse together, the minute he heard it, he armed and chased with 318 close workers all the way to Dan. So our story so far is the Shemites got raided by Chedda's boys who kidnapped Lot, drawing out Abram with 318 trusty fighters. All right, let's go another verse. So 5 armies couldn't defeat these guys. Here comes 318 trusty fighters from a guy who wasn't even interested in the fight. There's one new word here, chalak. It means deal, like the way an estate is divided among offspring. 65 law and prophet usages. Ooh, sticker from Lurker Lives Matter. Welcome, Lurkers. So, if you look at this verse, he divided his forces night, his servants. So he apportioned accordingly his forces against the foreign kings at night, and he and his servants attacked and chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. Is this guerrilla warfare? Is this a few men hitting them at night? We'll probably discuss that during the panel. It doesn't really update our story so far just yet. Let's go to the next verse. We're in the thick of the action here. Didn't even mention much about the war, but shows this little side skirmish that turns the tide of the whole thing. After it was already lost, it suddenly gets won. There's no new words here in verse 16, but let's watch this. Let's watch this video here. How long is it? I forgot.
Understanding shall remain in the congregation of the Rephaim.
All right. It's 20 minutes long.
That's a judgment. He's talking about mankind. He's saying if mankind does not repent.
I may not play this whole thing. I can't remember if there was a part I wanted to see. I'll just share the link. You guys can check it out. I remember thinking it was pretty good. So is this the first? I was wondering about this. This is a night attack. Is that abnormal? Remember how we were taught that, the Americans used guerrilla tactics and the British just were so confused and confabulated by that? That's how it was taught to me. Like, did no one think of night attacks? Was this new? Did this freak them out? I don't know. I wondered, and I did this last week, if he maybe met up with the leftovers that were on their way home from the prior kings that lost and was like, come on, hang with us. We know what we're doing. We got a good battle plan. But in this verse, we see he recovered the goods, Lot and the people, including the women. So our story so far is that Shemites got raided by Chedda's boys, who kidnapped Lot, drew out Abraham and his 318 special forces, who got the target and goods and people back. Did he defeat Chedah or Kedorlaomer? Not really, but he won in that sense. But in the next sentence, we do see he defeated him. So let's check that out. I'm a little discombobulated. Can you tell? What's my deal? Let's go to the next verse. It says from the defeat. There's one new word here, gira. Against. Come help, meet, seek. To, in the way. There's 100 examples in the Old Testament. It's a picture of the sun at the horizon and the gathering of the light. The R is a picture of the head of a man. So you combine these, and it's the gathering of men. So to put it all together, the king of Sodom intercepted Abram after he came back from beating Kedorlaomer and allies at Sheve Valley or King Valley. So our story so far is no human angel half-breeds, no murder, no blood drinking, 3 bloodlines, Japheth the Greek or Hamites, Philistines, Canaanites, Assyrians, or Shemites, Abram and Lot, who nearly single-handedly kept neighbors from getting rolled by the Kedorlaomer Empire. King of Sodom came to meet Abram. Let's see what happens. Verse 18. See how fast we're getting through this? All right. Verse 18. We need, so, Umalki-Tzedek, my king is right. That's an early king of Salem. Umalki-Tzedek. It's a proper name, but it means my king is right. It is a proper name. There's 2 usages in the Old Testament. There's more usages also in the New in the Greek. Melech Shalim Hotzelechem Vayayin Yahu. The king of Salem brought out bread and wine since he was a Cohen, a priest. 750 law and prophet usages. In English, a priest is a person whose office it is to perform religious rites and especially to make sacrificial offerings. To who? Le'el. Elyon. Le'el Elyon, most high or upper. There's 53 examples of Elyon in the Old Testament. It's a picture of the eye representing knowledge and experience. What does that sound like, right? And the eye, the vertical line, is a shepherd's staff or yoke. That sounds positively Egyptian and Illuminati, doesn't it? Combined, these mean experience the staff, feel the rod, right? Look at my rod. So I'm thinking maybe a wise leader or a tough leader or something like that. Putting it all together, priest king Melchi brought bread and wine. I'm calling him Melchi. So, no human angel half-breeds, no murder, no blood drinking, 3 bloodlines, Japheth Greek, Hamites, Philistines, Canaanites, Assyrians, Shemites, Abram and Lot, who nearly single-handedly kept neighbors from getting rolled by the Kedorlaomer Empire. Then a meeting of Abram, Melchi, and the king of Sodom. Let's look at verse 19. And he blessed Abram, God, most high possessor of heaven and earth. Let's go to the next verse. Doesn't really update our story that much. It's cool, but 2 new words here. Magan, that's to deliver. There's 3 examples in the Old Testament. It has this connotation of safely handing over. If you look in studylight.org, it shows a bit of like delivering a heavy thing. I'm thinking like a piano. All right, your piano is here and we didn't break it. The next word we need to know is tsar or tsar. Sounds familiar, right? Adversary. 111 examples in the Law and Prophets. It also means narrow or tight. If you look in Study Light, you see it shows like a troubling enemy pressing in. It's like a pokey adversary. I don't usually look into numbers, but Ma'asra, that's a 10th part. I usually just trust their number translation, but I did look that one up. So putting it all together, blessed be God Most High, who delivered your pressing in issues into your hand. Abram slipped him a full tenth of the proceeds. So our story so far, Shemites Abram and Lot nearly single-handedly kept neighbors from getting rolled by the Chedorlaomer Empire. Then Abram gave a tenth to the priest king of Salem, Melchizedek. The king of Sodom was hanging out there also. Let me shorten this. Shemites Lot and tithing Uncle Abram, who defeated the Chedorlaomer Empire. Or Shemites Lot and mighty pious Uncle Abram. Just to shorten it a little bit. Let's look at verse 21. Just 4 more verses to go. Man, we're making really good time. King of Sodom said, keep the money. Keep the money. I'll take the people. You keep the money. Pythagi, what's up? In the house. So after the battle of Sidon, what does that say? Sidon. King of Sodom offered the normal warlord payment to Abram. That'd be the normal payment. That was customary. I can't remember where I read that, but I believe it. Let's go to verse 22 and see the reaction. He's like, bruh. Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have a contract with the Most High. Keep your filthy winnings. So the king of Sodom offered the normal warlord payment to Abram, who said, I'm with Ahiah, or the Most High, or Yahweh. Let's look at the next verse, 2 more verses. There's 4 new words to look at here. Chut, that's a thread, cord, or line. There's 7 usages in the Law and Prophets. Serok, that's a sandal, like a string sandal. There's 2 usages, and both times it shows up right next to the word sandal. Na'al or na'ala, that's a sandal or a shoe. There's 22 usages in the Law and Prophets. Usually sandal, sometimes shoe. So since we're seeing chut serok na'al, it's a stringy shoe sandal thing. Ashar, that's to be or become rich. There's 17 usages in the Law and Prophets. It can mean to pretend to be rich, to pose, but usually it means to be rich. So to be rich-ish, you know. So this verse says, I'll take jack, not a thread, not a shoelace from you, so you can't say you helped me at all to become more wealthy. So he's just spelling out the reasoning right there. That's the motivation right there. He's talking on the nose if this was a play. He's just telling his thoughts, telling his feelings. So after the battle of Sidon, king of Sodom wanted partners, and Abram dissed him and made it super clear he never needed king of Sodom. To be fair, did the king of Sodom help much? He kind of lurked in the background and joined him after the win. Maybe some of his people went, but he was scared and hung back. So I think our story so far can be carried forward like this for next week. We're going to talk about all this here in a second, but we'll start off next week with no human angel half-breeds, no murder, no blood drinking. 3 bloodlines, Japheth the Greek, Hamites, Philistines, Canaanites, Assyrians, Shemites, Lot, and mighty pious Uncle Abram as examples. Let's look at the last verse of this chapter, just to clean it up. 3 new words. Bilade, that means apart from, except, or without. There's 17 Law and Prophet examples. Besides, essentially. Na'ar, a boy, lad, youth, retainer, like a page. 240 examples, like a young soldier maybe. Soldier. Chelek, that's a portion, a tract, or a territory. 67 examples in the Old Testament. It's a share or a portion. So to put this verse together, the army did eat, so there's that, but nothing else. And it's up to the other 3 kings, whatever they want to do. So Abram is kind of the boss in this equation. And that's our conclusion for now. Let's get our panel started. I think we have to use the new link because the old one sucked last time. So let me generate a new link. Jitsi. Wow, I don't even have last week's link. Let me make a new one. Competitive stuff, enjoy necessarily. Let's see, I gotta turn off my camera. Wow. Join. Let me put the link. This is for anybody who feels like chit-chatting about what we just read, which was a lot of stuff. Here comes the music. Boink. Oh, silence. Stone cold silence. How are my lurkers? I miss you guys. I haven't seen you lurking, but now I see you. Hey, Black Yoda. That was a lot of verses in 32 minutes.
Yeah, you did that pretty quick.
Yeah, jammed through it.
How was your week?
You know, it was good. It was good.
I think that baking soda tip that you gave me helped a little bit.
Yes.
Shortly after we hung up, some good burps finally came out, you know?
Brap. Did you do the alphabet?
Maybe later in the day.
Right.
No, it's a miserable feeling when it's stuck like that. And it just keeps getting worse and worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had it a few times. Not as bad as what you were describing, but it woke me up and I thought I was maybe going to throw up, and then I realized, oh, it's just stuck.
Yeah.
And then you got to wait until it works its way out. It's terrible.
And then when it does come out, dude, it's like just trombone out the mouth.
When we were kids, like maybe middle school level, my sister really learned how to burp really well. She was the champion burper in the house.
You know, I never learned how to do that. I never even understood how people can do it. You know,
she taught me. And the thing is, if you do it a lot, it seems like you can kind of stretch your stomach out and make it hold even more, which is probably not smart.
I have no idea. So let's invite P. Thaggy into the conversation.
What's up, boys?
Because I'm curious to go over that link that we were talking about earlier.
Right on. So, P. Thaggy, this is going back to chapter, the first word, or sorry, not the first word. The names of the generations, all the way from Adam to, I think, Noah. Maybe even past. The best burper.
And they spell out.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, is that in 5?
Yeah, probably it's 5. It's pretty well known. So let me Google it.
It is. It's 5.
Names of the
I didn't think to look into that chapter. I'm looking for this.
So Adam to Noah is man appointed. So it's Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. And the names have meanings. So man as such, we know that from Jordan Peterson or from actually reading Hebrew. Seth, appointed. God has given me a son, I think she says, or given me a replacement or something like that. Enosh, mortal. I'd never really dug into that. Kenan, sorrow. Mahalalel, the blessed God. Jared, come down. Enoch, teaching. Methuselah, his death shall bring. Lamech, the despairing. Noah, rest and comfort. We know Noah means like comfort from labor or release from labor. So if you put that as a sentence, man appointed, mortal, sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching, his death shall bring the despairing rest and comfort.
Wow.
Which is the gospel.
Wow. I didn't know that. Pretty cool, man.
It's kind of cool, right?
I never thought about like you do it every week, right? We go over words in Hebrew. It
Yeah.
never crossed my mind to run their names.
Right. I ran Adam's name and Noah's name, but I think those are the only two that I talked about kind of as more than just a name.
But the fact that it puts a sentence together like that is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. I mean, just a straw man or steel man, any clever writer could think of that, right?
So, and I was thinking
Unless
about
it
that
were true.
aspect.
Right.
I was thinking about that aspect earlier.
Yep.
Now, as far as a story, that works really well and adds more to it, right?
Right.
So, were those their actual names, or did they just do that to embellish the story?
Or let's make a deal. I'll tell Angular to start a brand new family sentence with his firstborn, and then each one can add to it.
Man.
You know those
No,
games? Yeah.
no, I was just saying when I saw that, I was just like, wow. I had to text you that like real quick.
Yeah.
So because it fits perfect with what we try to do here.
It does. Yeah, there's probably way more. Like, one of the things that, well, okay, let me just, I don't know if I should do this yet. I'll just tangent a super off topic tangent real quick. Did you ever read the Bible Code? That book that was famous like 25 years ago, or maybe.
As I was just talking, I was trying to remember of what that was. I never actually read the book, but I was thinking about going on YouTube or something to see if I could find more stuff like that.
Right.
So
the Bible
I do
Code,
remember,
yeah.
No, go ahead. I do
Basically
remember the
says
book.
you put all the Bible and then you can find these like crossword puzzle things in it. And it's super compelling and totally exciting. But if you stop and you do a little science in your head, you're like, could you do it with Shakespeare if you lined it up just right? And I was always too lazy to try. And I kept hoping to stumble into anyone else who had tried in earnest. And last I checked, no one had. Because
I've never.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No. I had enough of the thought out.
I've never done it for myself.
Right.
But I would think that if you find patterns and that start to create like its own algorithm, and you can continuously use those patterns to unlock, things. Yeah. I would have to say, you got something there. But if you're just going off of some random chaotic nonsense, you could make whatever message you wanted to.
Right. But I brought that up to kind of say, despite that book, I do get the impression that Hebrew as a language and the Old Testament, especially the Torah, is stacked with some really intentional, pretty high level numerology in the way that the whole thing is designed. Like, it'll have a lot. Like, there's this one video that's going around which breaks down the letters of, I think, Genesis 1:1, but I don't want to get it wrong. And shows how even the letters themselves, if you break them out, they show the gospel. And it's got a little bit of hijinks and tomfoolery, or what's the word, shenanigans, but not that much. So, anyway.
The one thing I remember is the word for man or husband in Hebrew had a number.
Yeah.
And wife had a number or something like that. And then child was the equivalent of those numbers or something.
Right. They add together.
So I get what you're saying. I just never dove on that one
But
I'm
shall
curious
we?
to see
Yeah, go ahead.
how much is up there. Yeah.
There's a ton, I think, but do you guys want to, anything about that, Pythagi, before we dive into King Cheddar and his boys?
About the Bible Code? No.
Yeah, just any that we did. Yeah. a little off topic.
I'm just familiarizing myself with it. It was a quick internet search, and the author considered it. He coined a new word, theomatics. Theomatics,
Right. That's
like
awesome.
like a portmanteau of mathematics and religion or God.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
Well, Pete Thaggy, what are your thoughts on those names putting a sentence together like that?
It's mind blowing. I'll put that in the chat.
I got an itch in my throat and it won't go away.
It's
Okay, there's my
almost
mind blowing.
spring. Yeah. Nice. Goo.
So I noticed when you were reading G. Ross, that guy that escaped
Yep.
and went and had that conversation with Abram.
Yep.
He's one of the people at the end that Abram didn't want any, goods or rewards or anything. But those brothers that Abram was like, yeah, you can give the shit to them. That's dude's brothers. The guy that escaped.
Nice catch. So,
Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, a survivor came. No, I think the Oaks of Mamre are from the Amorites, which is the brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner.
No, all right. So you got the brother Eshcol and the brother of Aner. So those two are brothers.
Yeah.
But I think they're making reference to the guy that escaped is brothers with them too. So then when you go to the bottom in 24, it brings up Eshcol and Aner is again. And Abraham is like, yeah, just give it to them.
Could be.
So it makes me wonder if it makes me wonder.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it depends on what text you're reading. That person who alerts Abram is a different person in different scriptures. So here in my version, I'm doing the international standard. My translation, verse 13 says, "Someone escaped." Someone. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says, "Now one of the shepherds of the flock which Abram had given to Lot escaped from captivity." It was one of Lot's shepherds. And then another one, I don't know if it was, what was I reading? It was either, my other sources are like Josephus, and then I'm reading this new one, The Secrets of Moses, the Asiter. And there's another extra biblical writing that says that he was someone, just a captive, someone who knew the land well and was able to cover that land quickly and find Abram. And it doesn't. So it's a completely third version of the story.
All right. So on verse 13, when it says, because I'm in the one I'm reading is King James. It says, "And there came one that had escaped and told Abraham the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner."
And they were friends with Abram.
These were confederate with Abram.
Right.
That's what it says in my book.
Right. Okay.
But regardless, I mean, that's still Eshcol and Aner at the end.
Uh-huh.
And he's like,
Mamre. It's Mamre. Mamre is the brother. There's the three brothers.
Right.
Right.
So it's saying that someone escaped who was living by the oaks belonging to Mamre. So now the subject is Mamre, the Amorite, whose brothers. So we're saying Mamre had brothers.
Right.
Aner and Eshcol. Let me just check the Septuagint here.
So the guy's living with the Mamreites, basically. The Mamre.
Isn't Memra like let's say the oldest brother, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the point is Abram
Here's
says, yeah,
here's the Septuagint. And one of those who had been rescued when he arrived told Abram, the immigrant. So every scripture you turn to, it's going to read slightly different.
right.
Right.
And there he's the outsider still, just a little dash of that, calling him an immigrant.
Well, yeah, because this whole story is, and this is what I want to get into.
Yeah.
So God's calling him out of what do we call it? When he was living with the Chaldeans.
Yeah.
So he's coming out of Shinar or wherever, and he's bringing him to a land that he doesn't know. He'll be a stranger. Some versions of the Bible say a stranger in the land,
Right.
and and the whole generation that come with him are going to be strangers. And so then it becomes like this theological, you know, topic, thesis, like why Abram, why a Chaldean, why didn't he choose an Egyptian? Why didn't he choose someone who was, you know, one of, let's say, more closely connected with the sons of Noah, or someone
Uh-huh.
who like was upright and had walked with God? Why wasn't it the son of Enoch who
Right.
was the father of this nation? So there's all these unanswered questions.
It's a fantastic question. Let me ask you this. So, well, let me just jump right into my thesis. And I got to be so careful because I'm very respectful of the concept of Abraham. But if you pick kind of a creepy outsider, ultimately you eliminate a lot of future arguments. You just picked your inside track guy, God. You're always favoring the Noahites. But by going a little fringy, he shuts down potential future arguments.
Maybe. I'm just, well, yeah, this rubs up against kind of, I don't have my thoughts real organized, but I scribbled down the question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And, when so he calls him out, and this is now 10 years in the land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit more clear in the Apocryphon Genesis. God in the next right after this one, in the next chapter, he says, I brought you out of the land of Shinar, wherever, Babylon, and it said it's been exactly 10 years since you left your home. You spent 3 years in Haran, and you spent 7 years in 6 or 7 years in Egypt. And now when you get back, he comes back. Remember, he comes back and builds the altar, and he finds everything that he left, his tents, his flocks, everything was in good order, and he was nothing had been raided, everything was fine. And so then it had been 10 years since he left Haran. And then this happens, this big war happens.
Yep.
So he already had, like, during the time of the rebellion, when they stopped paying their taxes, and these local kings from very small kingdoms, they're nothing in comparison to Edom,
Right.
and Shinar. But so these little, little potentates, they don't go and take advantage of the fact that he's gone, 7 years gone, and his flocks and whatever he left behind is vulnerable. They didn't even go and, unless it just omits all this information. Who really knows what happened? But if they were so ungodly and they were wicked, and they really didn't like Abraham or
Yeah.
didn't fear his strength, they would have gone and kicked over the altar at the altar at Bethel.
That's
He
a
could have
good
just gone
point.
and kicked it over.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what other prophets, and I think even Abraham later does that. He goes into the pagan altars and he kicks them over,
Right.
or pulls out the cornerstone and lets the whole thing fall.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Those are some good points. That's why I like having you around, Thaggy.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering out loud. So
It's fantastic.
he's an immigrant. He's an immigrant. God takes him up to the heights. We don't know exactly where, from which he could see the entire land from Egypt all the way up to Haran, and then he's supposed to walk up and down the land. He's
He
supposed
probably
to
had a
walk
weather
through it.
balloon.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But he's supposed to familiarize himself because this is his inheritance, right? And then after this battle, here's the question that I was really wondering, because I have like a thread, I have a through line from the other previous calls. It's like, what was this pre-Mosaic religion?
Right.
How was God the Most High worshipped? And what did that look like? And so here we are. We have Abraham, or I guess they still call him Abram at this point. Abram comes to basically right the wrong. He's got the the 2x4. He lifts up the old hound's tail and gives it a good whack. So he's going around, and then he does like this most what do you call it? When he declines to take any of the loot,
Right.
or some translations call it prey. He simply turns everything back over after giving a tenth of it to Melchizedek.
Right.
So one bullet point, one question is the tithe a part of this, we'll call it a Hebrew religion, the descendants of Eber, we'll call it, was Abraham's religion, was the tithe a part of it, or is this the first time the tithe happened? Is this how the precedent got started? It's one thing I wanted to know. Also, if there's a priesthood in Salem, which most people are connecting to Jerusalem, if you dig on it, it's pretty clear it's between Siddim or Shechem in the north and Salem in the south.
Yeah.
And I would say it's in Jerusalem vicinity. But you already not only have a priesthood, but you have a holy city, which is the holiest like location where your high priest is located.
Right.
Would they have already been acquainted? And where are the other practitioners? Where are the other people who worship God Most High that you would have to set up a priesthood?
Well, and also this is the only priest king until Jesus, because Aaron's priests are never kings.
Come on.
Yeah. So right. So
it's a royal priesthood.
That's a whole other topic. It's like the shift from this earlier pre-Mosaic priesthood was the line of Melchizedek, and then later, maybe circa 200 years, I might have my chronology off, but you got to go forward about 200 years before you get to the Exodus and setting up the Levite priesthood.
Right. Maybe even more, because they're in. Joseph. They have to have enough time to go from friendly to icky, which I guess is like 3 generations.
And they need enough time to have enough grandsons to be in the captivity story, and for what I think Exodus 2 is this Moses was the son of some Levite. They don't say his name.
To answer one of your earlier questions, this could be because the story is compressed in the Torah, but it feels like Abram just knew, drop a tenth. But that just could be because the story is compressed.
Yeah, that's why I keep seeing this more. There's more things we don't know. And there's more things that it's like the more the Bible tells you, it's like, well, now you just got me thinking. Like, well, I need to know. I need to know this. I need to know that.
I think the author of Hebrews, which I am not sure if it's Paul or not, talks a little bit about Melchizedek and this system. So there might be some answers in there, but I don't know if I'm off the top of my head.
when I looked up Melchizedek, it said that there's only 2 references in the Bible. This is one
Yeah.
of them, and the other one is in a psalm. So I'm not familiar with
Oh,
that.
okay.
Unless it was like through by way of, like, say, allegory, or if he was talking about someone else metaphorically in reference to
Well, he says
Melchizedek.
Jesus is of the order of Melchizedek in Hebrews 7.
Oh, okay. Let me find that.
Hebrews 7, verse 1. Maybe even Hebrews
7:1, the
6.
Messiah. Oh yeah, the Messiah is superior to Melchizedek. So this would be the 3rd reference to Melchizedek.
Uh-huh.
So when you have this, here's the only thing that I could remember from what we read so far. I'm thinking, we don't know if these 2 men were acquainted with each other, if Abraham was somehow already an adherent practitioner within this organized religion of you know, the God Most High.
Right.
What we do know is that, the act of sacrifice and building altars, that was familiar to Abraham, because he did that twice already.
Yep.
He erects an altar, makes the sacrifice, and invokes the name. Whether it's Yahweh, Jehovah, or whatever. There's a sort of invocation of the name that goes along with it.
Right.
And this is all we really know about practicing pre-Mosaic Judaism.
Correct.
What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing?
Hi, Bernie.
She's in Little Hitler mode, just so you know.
Hi, Little
Well,
Hitler.
She's in the beginning stages of Little Hitler mode.
Okay.
Because she won't eat.
Because I'm not being Hitler. Go to bed.
All you need is like half another beer, and you're going to be all the way Gutenberg and Volkswagen and shit.
So, Yoda, do you know any of the answers to Pythagoras' question? It's really just, what do we know about Melchizedek and the religion?
That's part of the reason why I came inside, so I could use the laptop.
Yeah, nice. All I can do from what I've read so far is make this more confusing.
I mean,
yeah,
he's got a decent question.
I know, it's a really good question.
All right, give me a second.
I can give the impression that I think what Abram was practicing, and I really do think was kind of to the east, southeast of Haran, kind of east of the Dead Sea, pretty far. But I know that that's debated.
So when I typed in his name, he comes up as a king and a priest.
Right. One of the few.
But a priest of what?
The Most High, I think you could say. El Eliyal, or something like that.
Right. Let's go to Britannica. People as a king and priest. Was connected with Jerusalem and was revered by Abraham, who paid a tithe to him. Well, why would it say it paid a tithe to him? Abram paid a tithe to him when all he said was keep your shit.
That's a good question. He took a tenth, gave it to Melchizedek, and told Salem, here's your 9/10 remaining. So he almost tithed on behalf of Salem.
Sodom.
Yeah, the king of
The king of Sodom, yeah.
Was Salem the king? I thought it was the king of Salem that was trying to horn in on the deal.
No. Melchizedek is the king of Salem.
Yeah.
So they're
Okay.
all in camp. After they drive them out to Damascus. Now I don't know how many miles. You
Oh yeah,
scoot
King
back
of Sodom.
500
You're right.
miles.
I was mixing the cities. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So all of the, let's call them the five. So now the five kingdoms are assembled together around their hero,
Yep.
Abram. They're
Yep.
all huddled around, and they're meeting probably, they say, in the Valley of the Kings, which is probably near modern day Jerusalem.
Yep.
And out of that city, that walled city that had its own king that stayed out of the fight, came in
I
and
was
gave him a
joking,
blessing.
man. They know I'm
He
joking.
he praises him
Right.
and thanks him for saving them from the Assyrians or whatever you call them.
Right.
Ugh.
So it seems like there's a bit of a backroom deal going on here. Abram and
May I
Melchizedek.
say this? I just got 2 middle fingers from Little Hitler. She wanted to say goodnight.
Good night, little Hitler, aka Bernie.
Charming.
Sorry about that.
Um,
I do not Hitler.
no, Bernie, I know that.
Okay, thank you.
It's good to hear from you.
All right. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Feeling the burn.
Duppy, can I put Urkesh a few hundred miles southeast of Haran? Or is that pushing it? I know we always debate this.
Ur versus Urkesh. Okay.
Yeah, I might be confusing the two. So you're making me want to think that
But
Abram
we don't
and Melchizedek almost had like a side bargain where Abram's the warlord and Melchizedek is the priest king, and they're really helping each other out.
Yeah, but that takes me back sort of to the first question. It's like, if you already have a holy city and a priesthood established in Canaan, why are you calling this Chaldean out from 1,000 miles away and having him migrate and become an immigrant when you could have just used one of your devotees,
Yeah.
your congregation, whatever,
Well,
in Salem?
he had this bloodthirsty, loved killing animals, really good at fighting, kind of willing to do the dirty work kind of approach to life. I don't know. Yeah, I can't answer that.
What I'm reading is also referring to him as being a Canaanite priest.
Melchizedek?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, he is in
So
the
I
land
didn't
of
wanna-
Canaan. Sorry, Taggy.
Well, if you go to the Wikipedia page for Jerusalem and figure out the etymology of Jerusalem and the history of that town going back to the Bronze Age, you're going to see something disturbing. The faithful will have their faith tested. That's all I'll say.
Oh, let's do it. Let me look. I'm going there now.
Oh, did I bait the hook?
I'm not afraid of any question ever. I love it.
What? So there's another one in here, and it's referencing Abraham. I've never seen this one before, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly. Zadokite?
Cool.
Zadokite.
Cool.
Is that one of the tribes?
It says, in this sentence, it says, the story may also relate to the conflict between the Levite priests, descendants from Abraham, and the Zadokite priests of Jerusalem, who later changed their allegiance to Yahweh, the Hebrew God. The Zadokites monopolized Jerusalem priesthood until forcibly taken away by Babylon, at which time Levite priests asserted their own homogeny.
Yep.
I've never heard of a Zadokite.
No, me either. What was the thing I was supposed to look up?
Jerusalem.
Ah, right. I was busy looking up
Jerusalem.
Melchizedek.
Jerusalem. Okay, let me go there.
Zero Salem. Looking it up.
Well, Josephus says that after this time, this encounter and this sort of blessing and homage to Abraham, it was at that point that Salem's name was changed to Jerusalem. However, who knows if that's true? Uh, the thing that I think you'll find exciting is in the etymology section. It says the name Jerusalem is variously etymologized to mean foundation,
Right.
which is to lay a cornerstone,
Nice.
and
Yep.
but it's the foundation of the god Shalem or Shalem, and the god Shalem was thus the original tutelary deity of this Bronze Age city.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the patron deity of Salem it took its name from Shalem,
Right.
which is one of your typical Canaanite gods.
Mm-hmm.
One of these made up idol typical gods.
Right.
And then if you dig on that, if you click on that link, you're going to get into a rabbit hole. You're going to go deep into the rabbit hole and look at the parents. Parents, El. another Canaanite god, El, your favorite.
Right.
But this city. I don't know at what point we are compared to the secular timeline as far as the Bronze and Iron Age. I don't know where this Abraham story fits in, but you can see originally that city had always been named after this Canaanite god, Shalem, and so it kind of connects to my greater thesis that all the things we hear about this god El or the I am, I'm gonna make a case over time that he doesn't sound very different than any of the other Canaanite gods.
Hey,
Yeah.
G. Wolf,
Yeah.
I just dropped a link in the chat.
I see that. Yep.
Hey, click it and scroll down to where it mentions Psalms. It's the first word in that paragraph. Because this is suggesting that this guy is a prototype of Jesus.
So the crazy thing I'm going to suggest is he might be Jesus.
Yeah, you said that.
Well,
So yeah,
check out.
this is a very popular notion amongst
Right.
the faithful. This is a very popular notion.
This is new to me. This is very new to me.
Well,
yeah,
Yeah.
probably there's a good reason for that because he's only mentioned like in very short passing in 2 places in the Old Testament, and you don't really know that much about him. So most people don't really bookmark that. They don't really
Right.
take much notice.
He even says precursor of the Eucharist.
And because he's so like mythical, legendary, mysterious, I thought, why not break out the Philo? He's a weird guy. Everything is mystical to him, and let's see what he has to say about it.
Right.
So he does a whole paragraph on Melchizedek. He basically says that there's a metaphor in there about being both a king and a priest,
Right.
and then he ties it to his Neoplatonism of like these two. It's almost like transubstantiation. He's both.
Mm-hmm.
He's both a priest and a king,
Right.
like the way people debate Jesus' divinity and humanity.
Right.
You know.
So he's the king and the mediator to the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the secular king, but he's also like their connection to God.
Right. Right.
But then again, you got to ask yourself, was it any different with the Romans? With the mystery religions, the Romans, and I think the Egyptians did the same thing.
Yeah,
priesthood.
like we talk about the pharaohs with Duppy.
Yeah.
That do that trick. Or the Pope who likes people
even
to
the
kiss his
pharaohs,
hand.
They still had a priesthood that were coincided with the pharaohs too, though.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of priesthoods. There's priesthoods today. Like you, I was just saying, you have the Catholic one, the traditional one that we're told came from Peter. But then there's other ones that you would probably overlooked. The Mormons have one, and it's top secret, but they have like their church leaders, and there's an inheritance of a priesthood. And every father, is a priest in some small way.
Right.
Also, the Masonic Lodge, aren't the Masons? When you get up in these different degrees, some of them are called high priest of this and priest of that.
Yeah.
No, but we were talking about a combination of being a king and a priest, though.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when I think about history, I can't think of many examples where you have both of those in one person.
No, and whenever King Saul tries to do things that he should wait for the priest to do, he gets busted.
I guess we still haven't really answered the question of because your thing, Thaggy, was what was the religion at the time, right?
Yeah, because there's no scripture, there's no Torah, there's no law, there's no Moses, there's not even a Levite priesthood set up. This is
There's
something way earlier.
Wasn't Noah going off of something?
there is a dash of law at the Noah level because instead of
There is.
right. So before that, the last we had seen was like when Cain slays Abel, God directly intervenes and kind of explains how it's going to work from there. But now he's going to kind of take us after Noah. He's going to kind of back off and say, y'all don't murder each other. And then you start to see that nation states will handle that. It's not fully fleshed out, but it's starting to emerge.
Well, it was flooded out, right? Remember,
Right.
mankind became so wicked, he wanted to basically, he almost regretted his
Right.
creation. So he wipes
Right.
them out. Then it doesn't take very long for them to repopulate and become wicked again. And then he has to come down and he has to smash Nimrod and his bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
And then he's really pissed.
Right.
That's when he starts. That's when you see God's mean streak. After Nimrod and stuff, he's like, okay, we tried to reset. We still want to be wicked. But yeah, if God is saying that you are wicked and turning from my ways, were his ways and his expectations really known to them? How would they have been known to the people? And if you're a son of Noah or a grandson, you're literally related to someone who spoke to God, like
Mhm.
in person. So
Right.
how could you have forgotten that there's a God most high? Why would you become so wicked?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Abram and his dad were kind of had to have some schizophrenic voice visions to do the right thing or to do whatever this. At least Abram had to be told, like step by step, with visits from God or angels. Like he's maybe schizophrenic.
Yeah, or the prophets are crazy until they perform some freaking miracle, and he's
Right.
like,
They
"I
bring the
told
fire.
you." Yeah, Elijah's like, "I told you. I'm not crazy."
Right.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Nice. Okay, let's look at this map. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have it differently. I think Urkesh and are different cities.
I have them down more where Babylon is.
Yeah, me too.
But I know Duppy has some really good reasoning for why he's got him up there. That Assur over on the right might be closer. If I can just pull that down just a little.
Hmm.
It's interesting, though, because you can see the Assyrian kind of coming out of that word. Well, it is the Assyrian Empire.
Yeah, and while we're looking at maps and stuff, just a callback to last week. I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out. I think there was some disputation. Someone disagreed on what exactly an Amorite was. I was saying it's synonymous with Canaanite, and I still think that. I
Mhm.
found numerous references, and I think what it is, they're referring to a language group. It's kind of like the way we use the word Hispanic. You could be from Puerto Rico, or you could be from Spain, or you could be from El Salvador, and they're all considered Hispanic because they're Spanish speaking. And I think that's how they're using the word Amorite and why their area covers such an expanse from
Mm.
all the way up to where they border the Hittites, all the way down to where they border the Egyptians.
Are the Amorites named as not helping the exodusing Jews?
I don't know.
Let me check that real quick because I want to say, yeah, the Amorites get
Probably that's
yeah.
what Philo was talking about.
Yeah,
Philo,
like yeah.
in the first century, he cites Deuteronomy and he says that what was it? It was like you didn't offer me bread and water when we came out of Egypt. And so so then they were punished in some way for not
Right.
giving refreshment and relief to the Israelites.
Right. And they wouldn't even let them have safe passage. The Israelites promised not to steal anything. They're like, please just let us walk through. We're trying to escape the Egyptians.
Hey, Pete Aggie, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to figure out what were they going by when it comes to how did they respect God and whatnot and give tribute. It just crossed my mind that a lot of Africans, they have oral tradition.
Yeah.
So do you think it could have been something along those lines?
Oh, I know it was. I know it was. This is exactly. I think we talked about it. Maybe not last week, but certainly one of the prior weeks. Is that we were talking about like the oldest Bible we have, Hebrew Torah, is actually only 1,000 years old. All the really old ones are lost.
Right.
I mean, they could be in the Vatican or they could have just been destroyed over time and weathering. But a lot of this stuff was an oral tradition. It was had to have been, like they still do today. You learn it to almost like a song. It helps you remember.
Right.
Because I never really put much thought into how they went about, how you bring that question up, because they had their altars, they made their sacrifices, they had their holidays, right?
Yeah.
You guys have lured in the dubster. He's popping in here.
Yes. Rover, let Debbie come over.
Is he logging in?
Yeah. You start throwing maps, you get Duppy.
Yep.
I mean, I can live if Abram came more straight east to west to get to Haran instead of going up the Euphrates. That's fine. It's just hard for me.
If it's true that his father Terah was some kind of a vizier for the emperor or whatever is the king of that of Babylon.
There you go.
Then he would have to be from wherever the capital was, wherever the emperor was, not just from wherever you say he is on some map. He's connected to the emperor's, the royal family.
So now you're making me wondering if the Assyrians sent him over to make a base out of Haran and then go down, maybe to scout out the Egyptians.
Are you suggesting that it was Terah's initiative to move and that Abram was given an ulterior motive?
Oh, W.
You just made me think of it.
Okay. Almost like, hey, you're about to make this journey, piggyback on this, but I'm going to have you split up and go a separate way.
Right. Almost like the Phoenicians would have done. Sorry, Debbie. Duppy, say again. Duppy.
I'm here. I'm just letting Daggy finish.
No, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm giving you the talking stick.
You walked in right when we were getting
Oop.
super excited. I think I was proving that
Sorry,
Abe.
I had the stream still the volume on, and it's so delayed. I got really confused.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So yeah, you're right, G. Ross. When it comes to maps, they always get my interest. I made my living with maps, so
Nice.
so yeah, this map, I had forgotten I had this one. I'd saved this a long time ago, and I just stumbled across it during the show because I was looking for my other Urkesh map, the one that has Haran on it. This one doesn't. But what's interesting about this one is that this dates from the time of Abraham, which was, I had forgotten that Urkesh was part of the old Assyrian Empire at that time. So, you know, the story about Abraham and Nimrod, right? Well, if you're looking for that Nimrod, it might be one of the old Assyrian emperors.
Got it. Could you see how there's the Hurrians northeast of the Assyrian Empire?
The Hurrians.
Yeah. Could they have influence out to the west above the Assyrian Empire?
Yeah, and I think at this time they did. Let me get back to that map. Yeah, but the difficulty with understanding the Hurrians is that they are considered a non-Semitic group because of their language, I guess. They're more like a Anatolian or Indo-European type of language as opposed to Semitic.
So more Japhethite of origin?
I guess you know that material better than I do.
I'm forcing it. You know, there's three choices: Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Yeah, I guess so. In that context, sure.
I think, you know, the Japhethites went kind of up towards Turkey and Greece, and maybe we're good at traveling, especially by sea. But I don't know that for sure.
I'm still struggling to understand the tribes, the 12 tribes, which are obviously later than this.
Yeah.
So going back to Ham, Shem, and Japheth, that's sort of beyond where I've been playing around at this point.
Right.
So you know that better than I do.
Well, and the 12 tribes have a propensity to keep marrying into the 12 Ishmaelic tribes.
I didn't know Ishmael had 12 different tribes.
He's got 12 princes that pop out of his lineage. The ones that, like, so Edom and there's a couple others. There's a line that stays pretty strong, and a lot of the Israelite tribes, or a lot of the Israelite descendants, keep marrying into the Edomite line to simplify it.
Well, my operating theory is that at this point is that the Israelites did that a lot.
Yes, I think we're seeing that.
Yeah. And that plays into what I dropped a hint at, what I've been playing around with in my head the last 2 days. Oh, I'm sure it's a very heretical thought, but that name Asser, that's where the name Assyrians comes from. That was where they got their start. Was that city on the Tigris there, Asser or Ashur. That's very close to Asher. So
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of wondering if the Jacob story and the 12 tribes might be the mechanism that these old religions that are very similar kind of got their start. What if the tribe of Asher is really the Assyrians? I know that doesn't match with the geography that's accepted for where the 12
Oh,
tribes.
you're saying it's like a nutshell. You kind of unpack all the different peoples of the world through the 12 tribes.
Yeah,
Like when Joseph was the
it's
first to go down to Egypt.
well, this would predate Joseph barely, I guess.
Joseph was one of the sons of
Yeah,
Jacob,
so I'm
one of the
not
12.
quite sure how he's going to fit into this yet. Like I said, it's a very new thought that I just had 2 days ago. And I don't know how it's going to flesh out, but I'm working on it. But the other one that might work is the tribe of Dan is often associated with the Greeks.
Okay.
So again, that would be, maybe Jacob was tasked. Well, didn't Abraham, wasn't he told that he was going to be the progenitor of the line of kings or something like that would span the globe? Am I remembering that correctly? I probably
Yeah,
have to go reread it.
They'd be very populous.
Yeah. So what if when it got to Jacob had these 12 sons that were supposed to go out and populate. Now, the conventional thing is that they stayed in Canaan, but what if that's not true? What if those names were kind of disguised for bigger civilizations than just the tribes, like the Assyrians being from Asher actually being the tribe of Asher? Now, a lot of people aren't going to like that. It's just a wild hair I got up my butt, but it's a way possibly of explaining how this old pagan religion got spread out over so much of the world.
If they did, and they love diasporas, right? So if they did go through a diaspora, I suppose you still need to have noticeable descendants of the 12 tribes hanging back and getting too cozy in Egypt so that they get
that might be Joseph, because Joseph went back to Egypt, didn't he?
Well, right. So Joseph becomes vizier.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy.
And if you believe Ellis and Ahmet Osment or whatever his name was about that character Yuya,
right?
I've mentioned him before being the real Joseph. Then that's the example of how they infiltrated the royalty.
Right.
Once they got there.
Well, once he's established, he brings his 11 brothers in.
Right.
In the biblical text.
Yeah.
And then some, I think Pythagi and Yoda and I were talking about it earlier. Some couple hundred years later, the Egyptians basically regret that.
In the Bible.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that the archaeology plays out that way, but
well, I got to find a way to make it work because I take the Bible so literally.
See what you've gotten yourself into.
But I'm not going to depart from that. The what do you call it? I forgot the word. So much of the Bible fits observable world that it's just very hard for me to start carving chunks out and say, except for that. But I'm also comfortable to say, let's fit it to the observable world as well. It's just you got to get the right angle to put it all together.
Right. And my take is it fits the world, but it's very obscured.
Yeah.
And coming at it from different angles is extremely interesting.
But can we have, like, we don't have to have all 12 tribes completely in Egypt. We just have to have enough that when they escape, like the Hyksos rebellion, if that's, say the Exodus is in 2 phases, like you've said. I'm not super fond of that, but they need to then be able to establish a nomadic group that's really good at setting up shop, moving around when the going gets tough, but recognizing their own lineage of 12 tribes. They don't have to be the complete totality of all 12 tribes, but they need to be recognizable.
Ellis argues that it never really did get that rough for them. That's just the image
Why
that
would they
want
move
to
around
project.
for 40 years?
For which 40 years?
So after they leave.
You mean when they went into the desert?
Right. So they leave Egypt and they're going to go to Canaan and cross over. Yeah.
Ellis says they never did that because there's no way 500,000 people could survive for 40 years in the Sinai.
Yeah, I got to disagree with Ellis.
There's just not enough resources for that.
They had some amazing technology, Thaggy.
I'll tell you why there, G. Ross.
Yeah.
It's the same reason. It's the same reason why it rained for 40 days, 40 nights. It's what was it? The Amatics.
Sure. But they also, they had free bread.
It's only so that they're forcing this code underneath this.
Well, yeah. Have you guys ever seen that list of how many times the term 40 appears in the Bible?
Sure.
That's a lot.
But there's no reason not to take it literally. And they also had magic bread every morning. Yoda, you're quiet.
Right.
That's because Bernie was. I was trying to help her reach for this cup of water.
Oh, okay.
I'm listening to you guys, and I'm just thinking in my head. I remember seeing something on Ancient Aliens a long time ago, where they were claiming that they had this gizmo that could take moisture out of the air, and they could grow a type of algae that had all the protein benefits and the amino acids that a person would need. And I know that's out there, but as you guys were talking, that's what I was thinking about.
That's pretty cool.
I heard somebody, they were talking about this same, manna from heaven story. Somebody said there's a type of fungus that grows on trees out there in the deserts, and it's very dependent on nighttime moisture, to where first thing in the morning this fungus would be harvestable and edible, but after like noon it shrivels up and becomes unedible. And I'd never heard of that before, but it was just weird enough to kind of lodge in my imagination somewhere.
Yeah.
And could that sustain 500,000 people?
They didn't get into that.
Well, if the people are eating it and they had any kind of livestock, I would assume that the livestock would be eating it too.
I think they were in the.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that probably triples to quadruples the nourishment needs that you'd have out there.
It would help.
Right. But the cows and the goats would be good at harvesting it. They can just eat it right from the ground.
Well, they said it grew on the tree branches or something.
Ah, okay.
So maybe the cows could get at it, but the goats would have a tougher time.
Right.
But, they could be scrubby trees too, so.
Yeah.
Somehow they figured it out. 40 years is a long time with that many people, though.
It is.
Well, the other thing that I haven't heard people discuss in this context, but it gets discussed in the context of the Sphinx, is that maybe the desert wasn't so dry back then.
I've wondered that, because there may have been some over-irrigation.
The other thing that I was thinking about is melanated people have a relationship with the sun, and I would think more so back then. And where I'm going with that is Melanated people can absorb light and get energy from it. So
Well,
there would be beneficial aspects to that too.
well, non-melanated people get vitamin D from it.
Yep.
So I
I think,
think we all get a benefit from it.
yeah. When it comes to vitamin D, I think black people have a harder time getting that for some reason, or for that reason.
Right. But if you can live in the South and go and spend a lot of time in the sunlight, I think you can get enough.
I was
Yeah,
talking.
I think the idea is that if you were closer to the equator,
Right.
you got so much more sunlight that you didn't need to process it as
Right.
efficiently as if you lived a long way from the equator and had light skin. So you had to kind of maximize the amount of vitamin D you could get from the sun in the spring and summer, right?
Right.
So it's just sort of a relative processing of sunlight.
And in January, you're going to get pneumonia because you don't got no vitamin D.
Yeah, get that ivermectin.
I have some. First box of ivermectin I ever bought was $600 because it was price gouged.
Hey, so ivermectin is supposed to be really good with parasites. So when you started taking that, did you notice anything different with your gut?
I never took any. I just hoarded it. I shared it with my neighbors that needed it. I had some neighbors that got COVID, and I gave it to them.
Oh,
I bought a replacement box for like $20.
I've been wanting to experiment with it because I've been seeing links to how it can help with a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
And,
you're going to see parasites come out of you. I'm not brave enough.
Oh man, I remember Red Pill. He was interviewing somebody a long time ago. I think it was Nurse Penny, and she was talking about different things to do to help detox the body and things of that nature. And they brought up something about parasites. And to a degree, Red Pill is kind of a germaphobe. And the idea of parasites in his body was just freaking him out, dude. And like you can see it, he couldn't contain it. Oh man, it was funny. It was funny.
Disgusting.
Hey, you guys want to hear a funny story about parasites?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Once upon a time, I thought I had a tapeworm. So I got a bit of a scare in the bathroom one day. And then I started remembering the night before. There was a fair bit of alcohol involved. And apparently what I had done, I was living at my grandparents' house when I was in grad school at this point. And I had come home late and there was a nice hard salami in the fridge. And apparently I forgot to peel the skin off of it. So the next day I thought I had a tapeworm. True story.
That's kind of graphic, bro. Shit, I didn't expect that. That happened to a friend of mine. Now that you mention it, though, because they didn't realize you had to peel the plastic or whatever that is off of it.
Yeah, I don't even know what that. It's like almost like paperish kind of.
Well, it could be the intestinal case. Like they'll take the intestine and encase it.
It might be, but it almost looks like paper too.
Could be paper. Yeah, wax paper.
Well, but it holds together. It held together in my digestive tract pretty well. So probably more than paper.
Probably sausage casing.
Oh my god. Oh.
So not to put you on the spot.
Since we're being graphic like this, me and Bernie, we were just talking about food. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. and it was a recipe because she's forever posting recipes on Facebook. And in the recipe there was corn, and I'm trying to remember which recipe that was.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, so Bernie was like, "Well, I wish corn wasn't in it because you can't digest corn." And I was like, "Why do you think you can't digest corn?" And so we had that conversation, right? And I was like, "Think about it, Bernie. If you couldn't digest corn, everything that you put in would come right back out. You know what I mean?"
Right, right.
Well, I think
She was-
you can digest what's inside the kernel. It's the husk of the corn
Right.
kernel that isn't so easy to digest.
And so when I said, all of it would come back out, and she was like, "Well, sometimes it does."
Right.
And I was like, "I realize that, Bernie, but not all of it." You know what I mean? Like, so it is being digested.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
One thing I think a lot of us don't do is chew our food enough.
Exactly.
Duppy, I know you would have probably jumped in with this if you had it, but did you have anything? Because I think Pythagi opened with some really good questions about.
I missed the first part of the show because I was on the phone.
Ooh. Go over the names with him if you missed that part.
So here, let me dig it up again. So Adam really is the same word for dude or man or bro. Man as such. Seth is something like God has given me a replacement for Cain, or in this translation it's saying appointed. Enosh is mortal. Kenan is sorrow. These are the sons from Adam to Noah, the lineage. Mahalalel is the blessed God. Jared is shall come down. And we should probably all dig into this a little bit because I'm sure there can be some tweaks on some of these translations, but they're pretty accurate from what I know. Enoch is the teaching. Methuselah is his death shall bring. Lamech is the despairing, and Noah is rest. So that's the gospel if you read those names in order. Man appointed, mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching. His death shall bring the despairing rest. So that was kind of our first topic.
Oh, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So are those in the order that they're mentioned in the Bible?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's a lineage.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, my mind was blown. There's some kind of code there.
Right.
I don't know if it's
Almost
an
as though the
allegory,
author. Yeah.
or is it the Bible code, or is it an allegory, or is it more force? I don't know.
Well,
Is it
one thing that I
revisionist?
would comment on is, I missed that, Pythagi. Say that again, please.
I said under my breath, I said, "Is it revisionist?"
Nah, I don't think you need that. I mean, I'm open to the concept, but I don't. So when they talked about the story of Noah, I mean, he's a very messianic story. Both the ark is the protector, but also Noah himself his name means relief from labor. So there's already the archetype being built up there. And when the dove goes out, it can't find a place to rest its feet. And it finally flies around and comes back and lands on Noah, just to make sure you remember he's where the creature can find a place to land. But Duppy, we were looking at the relationship between Abraham, who comes across as maybe a noble warlord who has a really good relationship, either previously established or kicks it off really well when he meets Melchizedek, which is a priest king in Jerusalem, proto-Jerusalem. And what we're trying to figure out is who kind of, like, there's tithing that goes on there. And, like, what do we know about that religion, that form of that religion? We know it builds altars. We know it has sacrifices. We know it does tithing the minute. I saw some debated whether Melchizedek tithes to Abraham or vice versa. Most people say Abraham tithes to the priest king. Do you know anything else about any of that?
I'm working my way to that point.
Yep.
Actually, if you want to update on what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Remember I talked about doing a family tree for the biblical characters?
That's awesome. Yeah.
I've got it now from Zerubbabel, who was the third exilarch in Babylon, up to Rehoboam, who is one of Solomon's sons.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
Is he
detailed tree for that. It's been pretty interesting.
Yep.
And I took my Assyrian tree all the way back. When you guys saw it the one time I showed it before, I had stopped at about the time of the exile of Israel, the northern kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
About 800 BC, I added another 1,000 years to that.
Wow.
So I'm going to be comparing the Judaic tree with the Assyrian tree as I go along. It's been really interesting to see the interplay with the Assyrians in this process.
That's pretty
so
cool.
Yeah, I'm almost at Solomon and David. If I hadn't have got that phone call tonight, I would have been there.
Cool.
But boy, I'll tell you, this is really challenging to put this biblical one together because the Bible's very fuzzy on details.
Right.
That's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's one of those things that before you attempt it, you'd think it couldn't be done. But somehow I've managed. I mean, I now have a single family tree. Obviously, it's just one branch for the most part, but it goes all the way from the present day back through the Assyrians to (1700, 1800 BC.
Wow.
I even found reference in the Assyrian stuff to the Santorini eruption. Some guy wrote about the Assyrian Dark Age, quote unquote, and that corresponded to the same time as the Santorini eruption.
Huh.
So it's pretty interesting when you put it together like this. A lot of work though. God.
Yeah.
This stuff's been not easy.
That's
So,
cool.
is your intention to publish this someday?
Yeah, I think so, unless it all falls apart at some point. But even if it did, there's still things that I found that I think are worth publishing on. I mean, just the whole thing about blowing the doors off of the Da Vinci Code, that in and of itself is pretty significant, I think.
Yeah.
But there's more than that. I mean, there's about a half a dozen very difficult leaps that had to be made to get this tree back as far as it has been. But they're very interesting leaps.
Okay.
Like the Merovingian Da Vinci Code one, but I think I can make a case for it. The whole saga of Darius the Great of Persia and how he came to power is extremely interesting. Did you know that his stepdad was Zerubbabel?
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting story, I think.
Which
Anyway,
one?
still
Which
going
one
on.
was Darius the Great again?
He was the king of Persia after Cyrus, right after Cyrus the Great. But he came to power in a very, very strange way. Basically, Darius had a couple of sons, or sorry, Cyrus had a couple of sons who would inherit the throne of Persia. One of them, the older one, was named Cambyses. Cambyses was busy conquering Egypt. And then his younger brother supposedly usurped the throne from him while he was away. And then Darius came out of nowhere and killed that younger brother because they said he was an imposter, but they're not really sure he was an imposter. It's a really wacky story.
I feel like I've heard the name, but it's not ringing any bells.
Darius?
Yeah.
Well, this is Darius the Great, Darius the First. Darius the Third is better known because he was the Persian king that Alexander the Great defeated.
Oh.
So it's
okay.
probably that Darius that you're thinking of.
Probably.
Actually, it's supposed to be pronounced Darius, I think.
Right.
I'm lazy.
But ever since Hootie and the Blowfish, it's going to be Darius.
Right. Is he the one that he fought right before he died?
Alexander the Great, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, I think. But I think after he beat up on Darius for the last time, they had a number of skirmishes before sort of the final battle where Alexander won. I think Alexander kept going east, like into Afghanistan and stuff like that, before he died.
Okay. Did you ever watch that movie that they did with I forget the guy's name.
The Colin Farrell one?
Yeah.
No. I'd like to watch that, I think.
Or the Gerard Butler one. Which one are you talking about?
Wait, they did one with Jared Butler?
The 300, yeah.
Oh, that's not Alexander the Great though. That's like the Battle of Marathon.
Thermopylae or something.
It's before
Thermopylae
that.
is the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the movie Alexander, where Val Kilmer is the Philip of Macedon.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet. One movie that I did watch that I actually got a lot out of, even though it's not not considered to be historically accurate, was the remake of Troy with Brad Pitt,
right,
from a few years back. And what I got out of it was some quotes from Brad Pitt playing Achilles in that movie. He gave a couple of speeches about fame and fame making you immortal.
Right.
And I think that plays a lot into the way these assholes think. Because, you look at Klaus Schwab, right? And they're talking about transhumanism and their desire to be immortal, to be gods, shit like that. And
great cross reference.
A what reference?
Cross.
Oh, yeah, sure. Man, I try to draw shit from everywhere. But if you think about it, before this transhumanism thing, these people had only two ways, at least in their mind, to achieve immortality. One was through their bloodline, and the other one was through fame.
They would write poems about me, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very important, these people. That's why
and monuments, right? Ozymandias, the
Yeah.
poem Ozymandias.
And I think you can combine the two to reinforce them. Like you can have poems of your great deeds, and those can spill off onto your firstborn sons as long as they also do great deeds, and then build up like, this far forward.
Well, remember how many
Yeah.
times I've shown that these guys name their firstborns after
The
themselves
same name, yeah.
again and again and again and again. It's almost like
Right.
they're cloning themselves,
Yes. Yeah, oppressively forcing their kids to be just like them, or
Right.
perhaps, and I know
Right.
this is not required to do the Duppy model, but you know where I'm going with this. Using some real technology, maybe you can actually harvest your own firstborn and live on through them.
Yeah.
There is some satanic stuff out there where they actually believe in that, where they can keep reincarnating into the same bloodline.
And what if you can just break the mind of your kid so much that they just think that happened? You die, but they think they're you now.
Well, no, you would have to die, and then they would have to have one.
Yeah.
Well, I think that plays into this. I mean,
Yeah.
they kind of assert their will onto other people through abuse.
Or they could shatter their kids, die, become demonic, and then just possess the body.
Right.
Because it takes a shattered body for the possession to take place in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, psychologically, that's probably almost the same thing.
Right. At a certain point, it becomes like, how do you distinguish?
Right.
But how wicked did you have to live your life to become demonic when you die?
Right. Probably.
God.
Yeah.
Banish the thought.
Correct.
These people are something else. Dude, I watch a dodo video on Facebook and get teary-eyed and shit. You know what I mean? These people are just next level evil.
Mm-hmm.
What's a dodo video?
It's got like a toucan logo, and it's always like somebody found a stray dog that needed help.
Oh. So dodo's like the channel name.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you see them all the time. There's videos of people finding stray animals and nursing them back to health and not trying to get attached, but then end up adopting, or they'll find a home for it. And it's just full of success stories, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, are tear jerkers. You know what I'm saying? But my point was, I get sensitive just watching something like that, in comparison to what these evil fucks do,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you, panelist gentlemen, mind if we wrapped it up?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
It would be good for my beady rest.
Thaggy, did you see the link I put for you in the chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just looked really quick, but that was the oldest one that it looked like they had.
I've never heard of the Codex Sinaiticus.
There's a wiki page. There's a wiki page that lists the Septuagint manuscripts, and this looked like.
I know it. Well, I'm saying I know it dates to that time, but it's been rewritten, copy. I'm talking about what's the oldest book that you can lay hands on and like blow the dust off. It's not even as old as you would think.
I would guess it would be this one.
But do you think? Wait, do you think we have manuscripts from 230 BC?
Probably not.
I mean, maybe
that's when
does.
I know that's when it was written, and I know that the Septuagint survived, but just not the original copies.
Yeah, exactly. See, I was making a broader point that if you get into the weeds here with these biblical stories, comes down to which version you're reading, which scripture are you reading, because there's a lot of details that are omitted, added, changed.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and then you realize, well, the oldest physical manuscript that you even could open and read and translate is about 1,000 years.
Yeah,
If you go with
unless you got special Vatican Archives access, right?
Yeah. And we speculated about that in previous shows about, did it really burn down, or is that the cover story? Did you take everything out? Did you take everything down, load it back on the ships before you lit the match?
There's a lot of people that would like the answer to that question. I hear that probably once a week on a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like the broader story of the Romans in later in the AD, in the Anno Domini, we know the Romans kind of co-opted Christianity, right? And so you have these early councils, you have this or that emperor officially embraces Christianity versus institutes it as the official state religion versus, 800 years later, you have Charlemagne, and there's this kind of secular and sort of holy. There's a unholy alliance between secular power and ecclesiastical power.
Yeah, that was called
So
the Holy Roman Empire.
Right.
The unholy Roman Empire. So we know that the seeds were planted around that time, like Julius Caesar's, around the time that they become an empire. They're already. What I'm suggesting is maybe the idea of co-opting religions and sacred texts didn't start with Palestine and Judaism. What if they did that to Egypt earlier in the time of Cleopatra? What if that's what they've always done?
Oh, I think that's probably true.
They always co-opt religions. It didn't start with the Hebrew people.
Remember, only the elites could read or write.
Right.
Wait, even back during that time?
Yep.
Even yeah.
All right, so I'll give you a closer. I'll give you one more morsel, one little fun idea. One thing that comes out of this Melchizedek story, if you do the deep theological debates, there's people who are suggesting that the act of refreshing the army with wine and bread is somehow presaging or foreshadowing the Last Supper. And if that's true, what it does is it just reinforces that connection between Jesus and Melchizedek.
Right.
For me, in my practical mind, I'm like, come on. It's a celebration. They're celebrating a victory.
Right.
How deep was the menu? How broad was the menu available at that time? Come on. I mean, these are basic staples. This is what they were eating and drinking every single day of the week.
Right.
So, I mean,
all you had was bread, wine, and magic mushrooms.
Right.
Exactly. And so I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, do you really have the Eucharist? Come on. I have to cross my arms, tilt my head, and say, come on.
Right.
Well, there's a darker angle some people take with that too, that the whole bread and wine thing is symbolic of cannibalism.
Well,
I don't think I buy that, but I hear that a lot.
So every week in my Bible-driven church, we quote Paul, who says that Jesus said, "This is my body, this is my blood." So how is that not symbolizing cannibalism?
Oh, you're admitting it?
How can it not be that?
Well, that's what creates different denominations. People say it's figurative. People say it's literal.
I'm not saying that it pulls him down from heaven, but he says it certainly represents that. And if it represents that, then how does it not represent cannibalism?
Mm-hmm.
At least symbolically.
Your words.
I've got no problem with it.
But you could make an argument that it's just an analogy of becoming a part of me or something like that.
Sure. Like in Stranger in a Strange Land from what's his name, the sci-fi book. But, he does this and then everyone rejects him. His body does get torn up. He doesn't lose any bones. They stay intact for whatever reason. That's important. But he gets cut up, bled out, and everything he says happens. Like the feeding frenzy, if nobody consumed any of his blood or skin or muscles, they still, as a society, consumed him. They frenzied over the fact that he, choose him, not Barabbas. They had that big scene. So he's busy saying, you guys are going to benefit from me being a martyr, essentially. And so it doesn't have to be strict cannibalism, but it is a sacrifice of a person for a greater good.
Are you still talking about Jesus?
Yeah. Did I get too wordy?
No. I just never pictured somebody drinking his blood.
Well, he says this cup represents my blood.
No. I'm talking about like what you were just saying. Were you referencing that? When
I'm saying they put him on a cross and they bled him out.
Right.
And the crowd just thought it was the greatest thing. They wanted him to kill.
I just never pictured anybody rolling around in his blood and just.
I don't think they got access to his blood. I think his blood is too precious. As a matter of fact, I think his blood drained down through the rocks and actually hit where the ark was secretly buried. So that his blood is on the mercy seat.
I saw something about that about a month or so ago.
I saw something like that about a year ago.
It's pretty cool. But so I should make my point a little more succinctly. If every week I ritually take a little bit of his body had to be broken, his blood had to be shed, and I consume it, I'm doing an act that's pretty vile. But then hopefully that'll be like the dot in the middle of the yin yang symbol.
Hey, Juras,
Yeah.
I got a counter to that.
Yep.
Every week you rephrase the lesson so far. You're right.
Or just
You're
what I think
super-
we've learned from history or from the reading.
Doesn't it say no drinking of blood?
Right.
It
Yes.
does.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm waiting.
In about 40 years at this pace, when we get to that, we'll have to.
Isn't the difference that the no drinking of blood is Judaic, where the other part is Christian?
Yeah.
So you're allowed. Peter saw the sheet come down and clean the animals. So you didn't have to worry about if it was strangled or a pig. You could go to the marketplace and just get your meat. Now, Peter still couldn't bring himself to do it, but he was given
So we
permission.
can have carnitas. Nice.
Right. So, I mean, probably you could have blood pudding now and not, but it's not wise. I think it's good to not consume blood. But
the Muslims would agree with you.
Right. Jehovah's Witnesses think that too. They're like, do not ingest blood. But, he clearly was pouring wine. Like the text says, he poured wine and passed it around and said, "This is my blood." They didn't think that was his blood at that moment because he was still sitting there talking.
Right. It was symbolic.
Right. So I can't make too big of a deal out of it, but it is weird. I feel like a vampire.
I always thought it was weird.
It is weird.
I mean, you guys know I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I do it for spiritual reasons of my own, though.
Yeah.
Like, not because I'm Christian.
Right.
Like if I accidentally ingest something that had like a beef broth or just a meat by accident, it makes my stomach hurt.
Yep.
Like in less than 15, 20 minutes. And it'll stay like that for like 4 hours, versus a fruit that I've never had or a fruit that I haven't had in years. It doesn't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and that's not just me.
Yeah,
Like,
you need that colony of meat-eating enzymes, and you've gotten rid of that colony.
and then I remember the first time I had a vegetarian hot dog. It was a 4th of July, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was really looking forward to it because I hadn't had a hot dog in years. You know what I mean? And we're barbecuing and whatnot. And as soon as I bit into it, dude, I had to run. We're in the backyard. I had to run to the side of the house to throw up because the texture of it, and it wasn't even something that I thought was nasty. I thought it
Right.
was good. But my body just flat out was like, no.
Right. It
Even
thought you
though
were
it was,
eating meat. Yeah.
yeah. And it, dude, I mean, without even thinking about it. And so then I walked back and my father was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. As soon as I bit into it, like, fucking, I just had the urge to throw up.
Right.
And he started laughing. And he was like, you know what? I was wondering if that was going to happen to you because I've heard stories of that happening to vegetarians, you know, and it was just the texture of it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
I've
Same
heard
with me.
I've heard that a lot, but I've always wondered if it was more psychological than.
No, dude, I was looking forward to it. Dude, you know how you make the hot dog perfect on the grill where it's
Oh, yeah.
perfectly burnt? You know what I mean?
And there wasn't a smidgen of guilt after you ate it.
No, because it's a vegetarian hot dog. It looks like a hot dog, it tastes like a hot dog, but it's plant based. There's no animal to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's no guilt. There's no nothing. You know, it was just the texture of it that I reacted to.
Right.
Well,
But
I could see where texture is important because, as everybody knows, I really, 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 really hate celery. And
Do you have your stickers on, Duppy?
a big part. No, I don't want to put them on because I know what you guys are going to troll me with. But the texture is one of the things that bothers me the most about it.
celery?
It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
leafy green.
What
No,
about bok choy? Is it the same thing for you?
No, bok choy is okay. It's kind of reminds me of kale. Just kind of tastes like dirt.
Kale.
So
What about asparagus?
asparagus is okay, but it makes my pee stink.
Oh, you're
Oh,
one of
that
those.
that does
I'm one of-
everybody like that.
I'm one of those. Not
So
everybody.
you're just a celery hater. Like you just
Oh,
hate.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there are a lot of people that don't like celery. In fact, when the internet first came out, one of the first websites I ever went to, and this is back like, remember the Mosaic browser? One of the first websites I ever went to is called I Hate Celery.
Dude, this is new information to me. I've never heard somebody not like celery.
Just ask around. You'll find more.
Wait,
Dude, do
is
you
it
know?
the
I
is
just
it the
I just
string?
talk I just
Is
talk
it those
about
long
it.
strings? Wait, is it the stringiness that those strings that you
It's
can't
it's
digest?
it's actually no. I could probably,
Everything.
if I ate it, I could probably digest it fine. But
Or I mean, you can't like they're just chewy. You keep chewing and chewing, and they're still there, and you have to spit the strings out. Is it that?
I honestly can't tell you because I don't know if I've ever eaten one like that
Oh,
before.
because I'm telling you,
It,
there's a way to deal with that. You grab the bottom and you snap it back and pull all the way up the spine, and those strings come with it, and you can get rid of all those strings right away.
Oh,
now,
wow.
now ask me if I really found that useful.
That's cool.
Oh wow, celery is like one of my favorites, man.
Me too.
Do you know there's a chemical in celery that that is really similar to testosterone? So it's really beneficial for us to ingest.
I hear people say that all the time. That but it's got this and this and this, and it actually takes more calories to digest it than you actually get out of it. It's like, well, then that's a clear indication that it was never intended to be food.
Oh wow. Dude, what would soup be like without celery? Can you handle it? Say like in a chicken soup?
I pick it out.
What about a chicken salad sandwich?
Nope. No, I won't eat it. I won't eat.
What about tuna? What about tuna fish sandwich?
If it has celery in it, I won't eat it.
Oh man, you're so stubborn. All right.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's almost like a genetic thing because
No,
I
it's a food phobia. I have food phobias. We all
yeah,
do.
but I can't remember any point where celery would have been palatable since as far back as I can remember.
There's only two vegetables that I dislike, and that's acorn squash and lima beans.
I actually like both of those, and I really like Brussels sprouts.
I like Brussels sprouts.
And one of my favorite vegetables, if you could call it that, is cilantro, which is a very close cousin of celery, oddly enough.
Cilantro is a herb, but that is a damn fine one. It detoxes the body. It makes everything taste awesome.
The British call it coriander.
Right.
Mexicans call it cilantro.
Some people think
coriander,
it
that's the
tastes like.
seed that it grows from.
Some people say, and I don't get this, that cilantro tastes like soap.
What?
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
I've noticed
Because
that if you
it's
don't,
vaporous. It's vaporous. It's a little hot, and it's not like
if
it's
you
vaporous.
eat it when it's on the verge of going bad, I've gotten that kind of taste out of it.
Oh, fresh cilantro. Oh my God. Oh, that is the best. It's hard to get it to grow from seed, but man, that is the best. And it's one of the best ones for detoxing the body for like heavy metals and all kinds of other junk.
Yeah, I put cilantro in a lot of stuff.
And it's fairly cheap compared to some of your other
It
herbs.
was. I
I
think a year ago it was like 50 cents for a bunch, and now it's like 89 cents or something like that.
Well, that's not as bad as eggs.
We're going to have to do a deep dive on big cilantro.
On what?
Big cilantro. You know, like big oil or big pharma.
Oh, big tech, big pharma, big cilantro.
Right.
Big conspiracy.
Yep.
Well, G-Rock, how did we do tonight?
What a topic. You guys kicked butt. I love the questions. I feel a little bit like I think people have been wanting answers to Melchizedek and Abram's relationship since 1700 BC.
Well, the comparison of him and Jesus, that one was new to me. I didn't know about that.
So read Hebrews chapter 7. Jesus is a priest of that order. So he's not an Aaronic priest. He's not like the line of Aaron.
That reminds me, you know that video we talked about maybe 4 weeks ago about how you have to shift the timeline in order for certain things to make sense?
Right.
Remember
is that the flamenco thing?
No, it's a video called "Were the Pyramids Built Before the Flood?" which is a little bit of a misnomer because that's not what the video is about.
Oh,
it's about how the Masoretic text had intentionally changed.
I know the one you're talking about. That I like that.
Yeah, we were circulating. Yeah, we were circulating it. I not only found the actual book from the 1880s or something, or the turn of the century. It's like right before 1900. I found the book that actually made that case and has the same graphic where everything's lined up, the 4 texts lined up side by side. But there was another section in there about how the big ending, the big thesis at the end was was the motive. Why did the Masoretic text lie about the lineage? It was so that they could say that Melchizedek was the same person as Shem, son of Noah, and therefore somehow that denied the prophecy and the messianic fulfillment in Jesus. And you know what? If you go and look, I did. You know where you find that? I got this link from Ankavanka. If you go and look at the Talmud, it's a site called Sepharia.org, and you can basically read the Talmud. You can type in any word, Melchizedek, Abraham, and look at every reference to it. That is the only place it comes from, is the Talmud. It's not in any extra biblical text that I've read. Replacing Melchizedek with Shem. And then it's even on the Wikipedia page. If you go to the Melchizedek Wikipedia page, the last sentence of one of the paragraphs is like, oh, and by the way, he was Shem. So this is a real thing. Like, that video is pointing out a real problem where there's an agenda that's being pushed, and you can see exactly where it comes from. It comes from the Talmud and nowhere else.
I suspect there's a lot more cases like that than just that one.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant hypothesis that he basically proved his point. The Masoretic text was intentionally falsified, and they wanted Melchizedek to be the same person as Shem, so that it would throw off the lineage of Jesus being from the line of David, and which is the line of Judah, which is not a Levite priest, but a Judah priest. And he made a pretty strong argument. And then when I go and look at, like, who says this? Can I find it? It's only in the Talmud and Wikipedia.
Nice.
So the Talmud is the place where it says that Melchizedek was Shem.
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically commentary from rabbis from time immemorial, and then they piggyback on each other, and they're like, oh yeah, Melchizedek was Shem. And then someone else has an entry, and they're like, oh yeah, Melchizedek was Shem.
Yeah, that was a good bit of detective work there.
I like that. It's
Does
pretty
anyone have a
compelling.
link? Does anyone have a handy link? Maybe I do. I'm going to post it in the chat because I got it from Revenge. Here it is. I'm going to post it in the chat. It's long. I don't know if people have the attention span, but it makes a very strong case. If people are rewatching this stream, if people are interested in these little morsels that we discuss on Wednesdays, this is definitely worth watching.
It is.
You're just reposting that video that we watched a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I've tore down the green screen.
Time to go?
Well, I gotta get some sleep. It's late.
Yeah. I'm kind of eager to get some sleep. I finally got my biological clock back on normal hours as of yesterday.
Nice.
I just had 2 cups of coffee, so yeah.
You're screwed,
Thanks
dude.
for doing that.
Oh, no, I'll
It
be
makes
all right.
things lively.
I don't have nothing to do tomorrow. They're coming out to pick up the car tomorrow to take it to the shop, the tow truck. So that's the only thing I got to do. And I don't even know what time they're showing up.
Well, hopefully they show up early so you can get it off your plate and enjoy the rest of your day, right?
No, I'll probably end up staying up all night. And then whenever they show up, I'll probably crash out after that.
Oh, you're nocturnal.
Yep. Hence the coffee.
Love it.
Yeah, I was doing that the last couple of weeks, and I finally got back on the right track. So no coffee in the evenings anymore.
No, for some reason I've always been a night person. A lot of my jobs have been graveyard. I don't know. I just function better at night. It's peaceful. The energy in the air is calmer. It feels more quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're nocturnal. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I find it hard to get things done that need to be done during the daytime. So I can only do it for so long.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Usually, like, say I gotta like clean a room or whatever, I'll do it as the sun is coming up or as the sun is going down, you know? But dead ass in the middle of the night, I'm not doing any of that. But I do some of my best rabbit pilling or rabbit holing at night.
Oh
I
yeah.
can see that.
My rabbit holes are so deep though that I'd never sleep if I didn't force myself to.
Dude, there's times where I feel like I just laid down because I'll lay down and just, I'll be on my stomach and I'll just start rabbit holing. And I'll turn and look over and I see the sunlight coming through my window. And I'm like, damn, it's already morning time? Like, yeah, you don't got nobody bothering you, no text messages, no phone calls. Everybody's sleep on your social media platforms for the most part, so you're not checking messages and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, if I
that's why I
go
don't
ahead.
do those things.
Right. If I left this room, it doesn't kick you guys out, does it?
Oh, I'm
No.
closing out. I'm closing out.
Yeah, throw some closers if you guys want.
It was a good conversation. I'm really glad that the little nugget fell out of nowhere about the names and how you can get a sentence out of it. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
It just means that there's sense to it all, Like there's something there, you know? The Bible is full of analogies, examples.
Secret codes.
Yeah, and every week that we do this, I'm always walking away impressed by something that feels new from a
Same.
book that is a lot older than most things, So to me, that's what it means. You know what I mean? There's something tangible there. It's not all for nothing, you know? So I look forward to doing this again with you guys next week. And I'll leave that at that.
Thank you, Black Yoda. Duppy, anything?
Well, I'm bummed out that I had to miss the first part of the show. I guess that was kind of unavoidable, but I enjoyed the last part.
Thanks for joining.
Let's keep it going.
Spoiler alert, in the first part of the show, Abraham rescued Lot from Shadar Lamer.
Who's Shadar
Lamer? Or Kedar Lamer, sorry.
Is that the dudes in Sodom?
Came down from the northeast and tore through Sodom and Gomorrah and a couple other towns. They stopped.
Did you know that there was a paper that came out like a year ago where they've actually documented destruction layers in some ancient cities near where Sodom and Gomorrah were supposed to be, that they think was due to an airburst asteroid kind of thing, like Chelyabinsk.
Interesting.
I'll send you a link to that paper if I can find it.
That'd be
It's
awesome.
really interesting.
Cool.
And it dates to about the right time for Sodom and Gomorrah, I think.
So to save you from watching the replay, you could just read chapter 14, second half, and you'll see, just read chapter 14, Genesis 14. It's got four kind of with it kings operating together, almost with a top king, kind of Nimrod-ish. You saw the setup of that last week. As a matter of fact, last week you were in the chat. They came down, routed those 5, came around the Dead Sea, went through the tar pits, started coming back up, grabbed a lot on the way, and Abram's like, "Oh no," and he gets involved, and so you came in halfway through that, I think.
Tar pits. I didn't
slime
know they
pits,
were
maybe
tar pits.
we were talking about the bitumen last week in the chat.
Yeah, that was the part that I caught. I might have been late to that show too, but
Yep.
the part that I caught, you're talking about La Brea, I think.
Yeah, we got into that. But anyway, let me pass out. P-Thaggy, you sort of did a closer earlier, but it turned into a giant thing. Any closers?
I know. I gave you a morsel.
What's your
Love it.
final?
No,
what's your final closer?
My final closer is bonne nuit. Good night. Buenas noches and bonne nuit tout le monde.
Cool. And I'll close us out with just a preview of the plan for next week, which I'm going to do, I think, all of chapter 15. I think it can be done. I might go at the lightning blitzkrieg pace like I did today. And that's
15 is when he starts to want like some kids and shit, right?
No, all that we're going to see in 15, I think, is, well, he's told that he's going to have 1 million descendants. But he also sees a ghost, like a floating torch, walk through a sacrificed animal to validate that this is really going to happen. And I want to thank P-Thaggy, Duppy, and Black Yoda for a great panel. Thanks so much for joining.
No problem.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Yeah,
See you guys
next week, fellas.
All right, bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Let's start the outro music. What a time that was. Do you not all agree? Where's the music? It seems broken. There it is. That happens every time. Don't know why. So let me release the scratching. We have a tiny, tiny smidge of a scratching. You may get 1 pill. I'm hoping you do. Try it. Try to get some pills. It has been released. Friday, we will have co-host Angular, probably. He's getting a little bit to an age where he sometimes likes to go off and play on a Friday. But we'll see. Sunday, taking the night off. I might show up and do some half hour, maybe, but I'm literally working Sunday night. And I'm not off Monday either. I got to work Sunday night and Monday day. But next Wednesday, chapter 15, right here. So Friday, Wednesday. Maybe Sunday, probably not. All right, did anybody scratch the scratchly? I'm going to scratch to show it can be done. I have a minute or two of breaking down the green screen. I'll check out Belushi and Swing by Sloan. Somebody scratch. All right, I'm going to start the outro, though. What a fun time. See you guys next time. Love you. Bye. Thank you for spending time with us. We're joined on Fridays by co-host Angular. This has been G. Ross, and you are the underscore. Be sure to catch us on the foxhole.app, DLive, YouTube, or Facebook. Current shows include the Bread Pill Weekly. You've been red pilled, now be the red pill. You're out of the oven and ready for delivery on our weekly alternative news roundup and call-in show on Foxhole, DLive, YouTube, and Facebook every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Central, co-hosted by G. Ross and Angular. Current shows include Epistemology for Fun and Profit, where woo meets goo. You're in the woo, and the woo is in you. A philosophical call-in show with occasional guest interviews, diving into the oldest questions. Most episodes are exclusively on the foxhole.app, Sunday at 11:30 p.m. Central. Current shows include 9dNation, the nation with no denomination. Declare to the custom agents any edible plants or miscellaneous worldviews. We take a look back at how we got here, eventually leading into a regular Wednesday night Bible study at 11 p.m. Central. Catch us on the foxhole.app, DLive, YouTube, and Facebook. Our Friday co-host is Angular. This has been G. Ross, and you are the underscore.